This is Royce Kinnebrew again with your DEI moment. I did want to come with you to encourage you about a time like this that I feel that a lot of people have been feeling a lot of angst because of the political climate. But I do want to encourage you at this time, first of all, that America has experienced tumultuous times before, and we have been able to right the ship and get back on course. That is the nature and the perfecting that occurs in this country. So I want to just encourage you in regards to the title, What Now? Well, this is going to be a mostly civics lesson so that you can understand what is going on right now and what can occur right now. For many of you that know me personally and know my professional journey, is that I was a classroom teacher. I taught social studies. So teaching a little bit of civics so that you understand where we are right now, and more importantly, where you need to position yourself and your family and your community, I think would be helpful at a time like this. Going way back to elementary school, we know that there are three branches of government. You have the legislative branch that creates the laws. We have the judicial branch that adjudicates the laws. And we have the executive branch that is to make sure that the laws are being executed. Now, in our country, we have a federal executive, which is the president. Every state has a state executive, which is the governor. Most counties have a county executive or a county commissioner, or it depends on what county you're in, what they call it. But here in Michigan, we have a county executive. And then for the smallest municipality, we have mayors that are in charge of our cities. That's the executive. We know that our largest or the highest judicial branch in the federal government is the Supreme Court, which has courts that are based on districts around the country. I can't remember how many there are, but they're around 5 or 6 or 7, something like that. Can't remember. And then you have as well Court of Appeals. You have also in states, you have a state Supreme Court. And then you also have like probate courts in states. You have civil courts in states and things of that nature. Okay. And so then you also have legislatures, which we know that our legislature in the federal government is the House of Representatives and the Senate, 435 representatives in the House of Representatives with districts of around 750,000 people apiece. We have senators, 2 per state. That is the federal legislature. Now, every state has a legislature as well. They might call it assembly, they may call it a legislature, they might call it some other things, but they have a legislature, and it had the number of House members and Senate members different based on what state you go to, as well as some municipalities have city council. That's what the legislature is in your city. All right. So let me speak generally about some things that may be giving you angst or some concern in regards to what we have been hearing in the political atmosphere and in our media right now. And so, what I want you to do is to identify these 3 different groups that I am about to explain, because they all have different possible courses of action. And let me say this before I begin. Action cures fear. Action cures anxiety. Action cures anxiousness. And so by helping you think about your place in these three buckets, then it will help you very much. Now, this is where the 330 million people in this country can find themselves. Bucket number one is that, say, for instance, you were in the state of Michigan and the executive is Gretchen Whitmer, and you are not in any way employed by the state of Michigan. You do not receive any state benefits. You're not receiving, say, for instance, Social Security or disability from the state of Michigan, or you are not receiving what are those benefits? Unemployment benefits from the state of Michigan. You don't get any type of food or housing benefits from the state of Michigan. You are in the first bucket. If Gretchen Whitmer was to go bonkers, your life would be very little of your life would change, because so much of your life does not come under the purview of the executive branch. And, let me stop and explain this as well. Every agency in the state government and in the federal government and even county government are created to help execute the laws of that municipality. Meaning that, for instance, the Department of Education in Michigan was created to carry out the educational legislation that was passed in the Constitution for the state of Michigan. That is likewise at the county level and likewise at the federal level. So let's move on. So that first bucket of people, if the executive of a particular municipality was to decide that they wanted to arbitrarily do something, some of those things will not be possible, just based on the law. Now, whether they try it or not, that's one thing. All right. Let me go to the next group of people. The next group of people are the group of people where the executive, for instance, some of your ability to live and to sustain yourself is provided from that executive's office, whether it be county, whether it be state, whether it be federal. For you, you are in more of concern than in bucket one. All of your support doesn't come from that executive, but some of it does. I'll give an example of, you may be getting Social Security benefits, not Social Security benefits, but, well, that's going to be a lot. Well, I think you understand what I mean. I didn't come up with the good examples, but I think you understand what I mean. There are some people that are going to have some of their support come from the state, but not all of their support coming from the state. Like, some people may work for the state. Then you would have more concern than others. Okay? Now, let me go to the last group of people. The last group of people, all or mostly all of their ability to provide for themselves is in interaction with one of those agencies or programs that are under the purview of the executive of that municipality. For instance, let's say federal, in regards to Social Security. If you are only receiving Social Security benefits and the executive attempts to change that, that is a part of a law. And that will be hard to change, but it can be on the chopping blocks. But here are some things that I want you to know about. In each state, it's different. I hope I'm being clear here. If I'm not, you can drop me a line at roycekinnebrew@gmail.com. That's RoyceKinnieBrew@gmail.com. Now, let's say, for instance, the federal government. Social Security benefits can only be eradicated by a change of the law. That's why you have a Social Security Administration to be able to carry out the laws that have been created. Okay? And so if you are living off of Social Security, you have a higher level of jeopardy if the executive is concerned with getting rid of that particular federal benefit. The same thing with, I've been hearing things in regards to the Department of Education. Now, let me say this. There are several laws that have been created by Congress that the Department of Education is responsible for exacting or carrying out. One of them that comes to mind is called IDEA, as Individuals for Disabilities in Education Act, something to that extent, where children who have special needs or who are children of color, there are special provisions in that law to make sure that those individuals receive just treatment as prescribed by that law. And so to get rid of the Department of Education, it would be not possible, because that means that the law would not be able to be executed. Now, I'm going to give you an example. Some years ago, an executive wanted to get rid of what's called the Affordable Care Act. And you had to have Congress to act to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. But they did not have enough votes to do so. And so it still exists. Now, I want you to understand the buckets that you are in. And if you are in one of those buckets, especially bucket 2 or bucket 3, where most of or not all of your provision for life is influenced by the executive of the federal branch. And so what I would have you to do is get a piece of paper and ask yourself, whatever those benefits are, whether it be employment, whether it be a Meals on Wheels, whether it be any federal benefit, whether it be the one in education, the early child care one, whatever it be, ask yourself, get a piece of paper, put on the top of it, and write down, how would I replace these benefits? Now, this is going to sound very simplistic, but the act of you acting and to create a plan for you, I like to call it an individualized success plan. To create this individualized success plan for yourself is going to help calm the anxiety, the anxiousness, and the fear that you may be having at this time. So you will write down how at the type and ask yourself, how would I be able to replace this benefit? For those of you for Social Security, how am I going to make this money back? For those of you that might be employed, where and how can I get another employment? Now, some of these things are going to be very scary to think about, but it's going to help you deal with the anxiety that you are dealing with at this time. Now, and I'm going to be candid about my situation. And many of you who are watching this know me because you know that I work in diversity, equity, inclusion for the federal government. Well, I am recording this video for you because this is something that I've had to do, and I've had to do it on more than one occasion. In 2019, the executive of the federal government outlawed, prohibited diversity, equity, and inclusion programs for the federal government. And that meant that some of the work that I had depended on for up at that time, the past 16 years, 15 years, was about to be unavailable to me. So I had to begin the thought process of the pivot, because that type of money would not exist for me anymore. As a matter of fact, one of the places where in this video that you see me right now is at a federal agency doing an MLK program. Now, I don't know if those programs, MLK or Black History Month or any of the observation programs, will continue. I have no clue. But you can say, oh, no, we're not going to get rid of them, but we're just not going to fund them. That can happen. And as a matter of fact, with these continuing resolutions, to a large extent, that has happened because many of the agencies haven't been able to do any of these programs. So I am telling you this for you to be able to plan and prepare for yourself on what you can do, whether you're in basket 1, basket 2, or basket 3. Okay? Some of the things that you are hearing in the news are logistically not going to be able to be possible. But some of the things, because it is a part of the executive branch, and we're talking about civics here, we're not talking about any bipartisanship here. I'm speaking as a private citizen and discussing how the 3 branches of government works. Some of what has been proposed has a possibility of being quite disruptive. And that's all I can say about that. And so you need to identify which one of those 3 buckets are you in. Little to no effect, some effect, a little destabilizing, or the 3rd bucket, a lot of effect, impact on me, and a lot destabilizing. And understand that it is going to be hard to it's going to be hard to change. It'll be easier through executive order action to change, to some degree, agencies, whether they be federal, whether they be state, whether they be county or local. But to completely eradicate them, that means that you need to have another mechanism in place. And I'll just use the Department of Education because you know I was a teacher. Much of the discussion has been talked about in regards to K-12 education, but the Department of Education also has what's called the FAFSA, and it's free application for federal student aid. And 1.12 million of them were filled out by students in 2023. If that information is no longer going to be done in Washington, D.C., or some affiliate in Washington, D.C., and it had to go to the states, for instance, or another agency, those mechanisms do not exist. If you think you can stop financial aid forms from being processed and not upend American higher education, it won't be able to be done easily because the states don't have people for that. They will have to hire them. They will have to train them. They will have to get the computers. They will have to get the software. They will have to get the buildings. They will have to get the offices. They will have to move in the furniture. They will have to create. Basically, what they're saying is we're going to shut down one business and start up a new business at the state level. And so I want you to know that that is not going to be an easy proposition. Now, some things, and I'll just say this in regards to those who may have mixed immigration status families. I don't have a mixed immigration status family, but I think this is the thing that gives me the most concern, because there's quite a bit that the executive can do in this case. And from what I understand, 1 out of every 15 people live in this country in a mixed status family. 1 out of 15. And so if it's not 1 out, it's in between 1 out of 8 or 1 out of 15, somewhere in between. I can't remember exactly. I heard Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez speak of it. But here's the issue. The issue is, do I think that 10 million people are going to be deported? No. Do I think that some will be deported? Yes, I do. And unfortunately, because of the difficulty of something like that, I think that it's going to be difficult for that endeavor not to be riddled with issues where I'm afraid that some American citizens might get caught up into that net. That's the thing that concerns me the most. That's one of the things that concerns me the most. And I'm not going to go into detail about any more things, but I just want to come with you here with that DEI moment. Understands that there are states where DEI and Office of Equal Employment Opportunity and offices of civil rights still exist. And so we just have to be as active in being able to plan out our futures from this time forward. That's the only thing that I could say at this time. That would make sense, and that would not be, well, in the words of the great philosopher Forrest Gump. That's all I got to say about that. And so this is Royce Kennebrew with your DEI moment, talking about what now in regards to DEI and the other things that are concerning us at this juncture in American history. This is Royce Kennebrew, and we will see you next time.